Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
You know, it's always funny, we have this large room and everybody still kind of gravitates. I think we're all inherently 15 and want to sit like at the back of the bus and not be up front. Oh, look at you, you overachiever. So welcome everybody to Friday Morning Coffee. We appreciate you all being here. If you haven't joined us before, thank you. Glad to have you here. What we've put together is basically a program where we pick a topic, something that we're getting requests on, something that we're getting feedback that people just want to know more about. And what's fascinating about what we're going to talk about today is that organizations are beginning to find that no matter kind of what you put in place as far as time-saving tools or multitasking tools or those sorts of things, once you get to a certain point, you can only get so efficient with a person. They're not machines. But organizations are looking a lot towards how can they make people own the message. You know, how do you get the whole person at work every single day? How do you make yourself a great place to work where everyone wants to show up, everyone believes in what you're doing, everyone wants to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves? I'm not sure if you're aware, but this week they announced, actually last night, they announced the 2015 South Carolina Best Places to Work. HTI has been very fortunate to be on the list for the past 5 years? So, yeah, and we actually found out we were in the top 15 this year for small and medium businesses, so we're excited about that. This morning, we have invited our friend Berra in from Edward Jones, and part of the reason we wanted him in is basically Edward Jones for 2014 was #1 for large companies in South Carolina. And we had a great conversation with him a few weeks ago about what it is that makes Edward Jones a great place to work. And actually all morning I've been hitting the refresh bar on the Great Places to Work website to try to find out where they ended up this time, but apparently that group's not awake yet. So they haven't, they decided they didn't want to be in as early as we are. But just a little bit of information on Byrd. Grew up in Gaffney. Currently resides in Simpsonville. He is a graduate of the Citadel. Good call, sir. So he's a certified financial planner, has been working with Edward Jones for over 14 years. And we're going to talk with Berra a little bit today about kind of why he chose to do what he does, why Edward Jones is a great place to work. And then we're also going to talk just in general about kind of some of the philosophies we have here at HTI about what makes a great place to work. So for all you Twitter heads out there, always, #OSFMC. And if you have any questions at all, please, this is very casual, jump in, ask what you want to ask. We do have a hard stop at 9:15, but we will be around afterwards if anybody has questions or just wants to stay around and talk. So, Jen, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining, and thanks for sitting up front, because we never have people up front. You know, culture is something that Rob and I, we love educating about, we love training about. And we had some time to earlier this year to attend the Great Place to Work conference in Texas. And if you have an opportunity to attend that conference in the future, in 20 years in HR, it's the best event I've ever attended. And so I would highly recommend that. And we came back energized, we came back excited, and we just said, we definitely want to have a culture series when we do the Friday Morning Coffee. So this is our first event for culture, and Berra, we're happy you can join us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I met Berra actually maybe late last year. We're on the board together for the education group here in Greenville. But when we met with Berra, I said, tell us your story. What was it about Edward Jones that appealed to you? Because typically you join an organization not because they want to be a $20 million or $50 or $100 million organization, but you join a company because they have a purpose. They have a purpose that you can attach to something that's greater than yourself. And when we met with Berra, his story was Rob and I were just like sitting forward, like listening to. So maybe start way back 14 years ago, and share that story of what even drew you to Edward Jones. How did you meet him?
Thank you very much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here this morning, Friday morning, with the Human Technologies. Rob gave me a great tour, so a phenomenal outfit here. So thank you guys for being here this morning. But about 14, 15 years ago, I was working in banking, finance, and I really wanted to do something that would just make a difference in people's lives. And I wasn't looking for Edward Jones. I kind of found the organization by accident. I figured I wanted to get into the financial services industry, so I started looking at Merrill Lynch, Ameriprise, and never heard of Edward Jones. The lady I was working with said, hey, my family, my parents are clients at Edward Jones. Edward Jones did no advertising, no national promotions, no newspaper. Everything was door to door. You go out and you just meet clients one-on-one. So there was no advertisement. So I went online and did some research, and they mailed me a VHS tape. It was VHS at the time. It wasn't CDs. So they mailed the tape, and honestly, for about 6 months, I really paid it no attention. And I was bored one Saturday morning. My wife, she was traveling to Columbia to meet with her mom and all, and I was doing my yard, and I said, okay, I'll take a look at the VHS. And when I did, I thought, oh my God, I mean, the opportunity to create your destiny, to own your business, and really just, help shape lives. And I frantically, at that point, started filling out the application. I think I sent it back in, and they did a little personality test. And the rest is history from there. So 15 years later, I run a practice in Five Forks, and love what I do. I was 29 when I started. I'm 44 now with 3 kids. You're blessed, and great. But before I get started, I want to tell you a little bit of history about Edward Jones. Our focus is really, serving the serious, long-term individual investor, and we do that by offering convenient locations throughout America and Canada. And one reason we've been so focused on serving the individuals is that we remain a partnership. So unlike many firms in our industry who have merged, who have sold off, and some have gone out of business, Edward Jones is a partnership. And just to give you a little history on that partnership, Ted Jones, the son of Edward Jones Sr., essentially gave the firm away. Very, very unselfish gentleman out of St. Louis, Missouri, but he felt like the people that did the work should be rewarded. And he said, hey, owners act better than employees. So I'm a partner with Edward Jones, and my assistants that work for me, they have the opportunity to become partners as well. So an incredible just story there with Ted being very unselfish. And I'll tell you that prior to giving the firm away, Ted was friends with Sam Walton. You guys know Sam Walton? Sam Walton had sold Walmart and become of course, one of the richest men in the world. And Ted called Sam and congratulated Sam and basically said, hey, congratulations on becoming one of the richest men in the world. And, Ted received a letter from one of our associates saying, hey, why don't we sell and become very wealthy? And I just want to share with you this letter that Ted wrote. Thank you, Rob. His response to the question was, I am the richest man in America. Says, I have a wife who loves me in spite of all my faults. I have 4 dogs. 2 love only me. 1 loves everybody, but 1 loves no one, but he's still very loyal. He said, I have a horse I love to ride around the farm, and the best of all, she comes to me when I call. I have too much to eat and a dry place to sleep. I enjoy my business, and I love my farm and my home. He said, I have a few close friends. And the last part he said was, and money has never been my God. So the fabric of Edward Jones is really, really ingrained in, our founders, Ted Jones. And to this very day, 2015, we still embrace, that philosophy of Edward Jones is, you treat people, the way, you would want to be treated yourselves. And, being a partnership allows us not to focus on shareholders, but really serving those long-term individual, clients that really depend on Edward Jones and basically rewarding the people, that do the work. And that's what Ted wanted to do. He essentially gave the firm away. So many, many years into the future, we're still a partnership. A large firm now. We have over, 15,000 financial advisors in the U.S., and maybe a couple thousand in Canada, and about 20 to 30,000 in St. Louis, Missouri, and Tempe that support, everything we do. And we also believe that technology is important, but technology is not to circumvent, personal relationships. So we like face-to-face. I mean, we like contacting our clients. I mean, not just email to communicate, but we use it once again, from a standpoint to not circumvent, but for convenience. But we believe in just face-to-face contact. So that's our philosophy there.
Something I thought was interesting when we spoke a few weeks ago was, the leadership within your organization. Ted was friends with, obviously, Sam Walton, which you mentioned. And if you remember Sam Walton's philosophy, he wanted to bring products to the communities that were underserved, right? And that was also the philosophy of Ted as well. He wanted to bring, you said, Wall Street to Main Street.
Correct.
And so I love the story where Ted actually would go, in his overalls, he would go to farms, right?
Absolutely.
And to bring Wall Street to the farmlands of, just like Sam Walton did. So Jim Weddle.
Jim Weddle is our managing partner.
Right. And so there's an interesting, leadership, so you have fundamentals of culture. And so you have purpose, which is what we talked a little bit about. But then leadership is such a key aspect of culture. And so you have Ted, but then you have Jim. And Jim also had a unique mentor, which really has helped shape and define the leadership within your organization. Can you tell us a little bit about Jim's mentor and just how that shaped leadership culture within?
Thank you, Jennifer. That's a great question. Leadership. And before Jim Weddle, our managing partner, Doug Hill, for many years, Peter Lynch was the consultant to Edward Jones. You guys know the great Peter Lynch. And the philosophies of Peter Lynch, were just pretty much implanted with Edward Jones. But fast forward to Jim Weddle, our current day managing partner, his mentor was Jim Collins. You guys know Jim Collins? Good to Great. Good to Great. The book Good to Great. That's our managing partner's mentor. So basically, Jones is. We're constantly striving. How can we reach perfection? And if we work towards becoming the best, somewhere, we're going to do something right. And I just think that from the very top, with Jim Weddle, and as she spoke about leadership, and from the very branches in Greenville, South Carolina, throughout America, North Carolina, we have access to Jim Weddle. I can send Jim Weddle an email. I could call him. So we're a large organization, but we have access to our top guys there in St. Louis and ladies and the Tempe area. So I think just having access, the focus on leadership there is that anyone who desires to lead, has the opportunity to do that at Edward Jones. It's all volunteerism. I don't make any, I'm on the leadership team here in our region, which is Greenville, the Clemson area. I work on the leadership team, and what we do is the spirit of just lifting as we climb. The financial advisors from very early on, our veterans, mentor, our new advisors, who are being hired now. So I get a chance to mentor, our new advisors now. So we volunteer. We have what's called regional meetings, and we invite, the wives, our kids. So it's family time. We go to the Greenville baseball games, hockey games together. So, it's fostering that family environment. It's just treating people like, you'd want to be treated. Making sure that there's opportunity for women, our diverse financial advisors and associates. Just promoting an inclusive environment is really the focus of Edward Jones. Because as America changes, our demographics are changing vastly right now. So we want to look like, America. And I mentioned to Rob, we want to look like the fabric of America. And
we wanted to tweet that. Because he said, Edward Jones, we want it to look like the fabric of America. And that's like a commercial, which is amazing. But I just want to pause for a second because, how many of you have employees who have been with your organization for 14 years? And how many of them speak about your organization like Berra does? If I owned a company, I would want my employees, whether they've been with us for 1 year, 6 months, or 14 years, to have the energy and excitement about that. And when we were talking about leadership, just to have truly exceptional leaders within your organization. You mentioned a concept of servant leadership that's core to Edward Jones, which I think is important.
We believe leaders are put in place to serve others, and that's our philosophy at Edward Jones. I mean, we're not there to support titles, but we serve, and it's filtered down from Jim Well to our area leaders to the financial advisors, and how we also work with our branch teams, my assistants. I mean, we're there to serve, and Jones believes in that philosophy. We place a lot of emphasis on leadership development. We send advisors to conferences. I mean, we'll invite, like Jim Collins and the John Maxwells to speak at events because, I mean, we're just trying to be the best that we can be. And, it's really important to just, I think, just understand how, an organization can go beyond, as Jim Collins would say, is being good, but to great. And, I'm proud to say Edward Jones consistently ranks on Fortune's list as one of the best companies to work for in America. And as Jennifer mentioned, in 2014, we were one of the best places to work in South Carolina. I don't know where we fell it this year, but I think they made the announcement. When did they do that?
They did it last night.
They did
so we'll probably by the time this is over, we'll probably find out. So everybody wants to stick around and find out where they fell.
Right.
I'd like to see you guys be number one again.
All right. But it's about service. It's about building trust. So when we're mentoring our new financial advisors, I mean, we've got to build trust. Same way I have to build trust with my clients. I mean, we have to just, be open and not make demands, but just really support. And that's Edward Jones. I mean, as she mentioned, Ted Jones was a farmer, out of St. Louis, Missouri, and he felt like farmers were underserved. No one came to the rural farms to talk about planning for the future. That was kind of the start in the history of Edward Jones. He said, hey, how can we bring, Wall Street to Main Street? We want folks, who I don't know who've been forgotten to have the opportunity to build and grow, and that was pretty much the history of Edward Jones. So in 2015, we remain a partnership, still volunteering, and one unique thing about our firm is that for our managing partners, when you turn 65, we rotate our partners out. In other words, for leadership positions at Jones, we want to develop and always have people ready to step up. So our general partners in St. Louis, I think at 55, they have to start selling their general partnership back. So it's not a deal to where you're going to have someone that remains in place for 55 years. We want to bring in females. We want diversity. So we're growing at a very, very alarming rate. Our goal is to have about 20,000 financial advisors by 2020. That's our goal, 2020, 20,000 financial advisors. So we want more women. We want more, ethnically diverse financial advisors. So lots of opportunity for leadership there.
Something I want to ask. What we see a lot, at least passing this back and forth isn't awkward. So something we see a lot in organizations, and a key to being a great place to work that we find is constant, clear communication. When you talk about the growth that you're looking at having over the next 5 to 10 years, as your organization scales, what does Edward Jones do to make sure that the culture scales with it? How do you not lose that Wall Street to Main Street, original feel?
Rob, that's a great question, and it's a challenge ordeal. But as we grow and become a very large organization, maintaining that small touch or that family feel, can be difficult for any organization. So Edward Jones continues to focus on, locally our regional meetings involving family, inviting our financial advisors to St. Louis, having access to our leadership teams, both in St. Louis and Tempe, consistent training, culture, and history, talking about Ted Jones and what he did. It's like all the new financial advisors today understand, the story of Ted Jones and his unselfish act of giving pretty much Edward Jones away. Imagine that. And, Edward Jones Sr. wanted to pretty much hire Ted, and I think his sister, to be, executives. And Ted actually quit the firm. He said, Dad, if you do that, I'm quit. He said, why are we going to give the firm away to people who do not do the work? He quit for about, I think, 3 weeks, and I think Edward Jones Sr. asked him to come back. He said, Ted, he said, if you come back, I'll give you the opportunity to make some of the changes, that you want to. And Ted was the one that pioneered the one financial advisor office. So unlike our counterparts, Edward Jones, we operate kind of like a State Farm or Nationwide. So if you desire to be like a business owner, I mean, you can have an office in a local community of your choice across America, Canada, and hire the people that's going to support your staff. But that's always a challenge. How do you maintain that culture? But we think it's, volunteering and mentoring, because, as we bring in, say, new advisors from other firms who may have been ingrained to operate or, a certain way, Edward Jones wants them to understand how we operate. So that's always a challenge. I mean, but it's our history, it's our culture. I think every financial advisor that goes to St. Louis, when they train, we have this program called Know Your Customer, and we send them to St. Louis for about a week, and they go up about 3 different times. But it's history, it's understanding, the importance of building trust. We require financial advisors to go out and door knock, and a lot of times that'll really kind of wash individuals out. I mean, but when it's door to door, can you imagine that? Would you guys like to do that? Would you like to go door to door? I had to do it. Saturday mornings. I'll never forget. Imagine this. It's 2001. It's July. I'm in a full suit, and I'm beating on someone's door. Knock, knock. This is Byrd. I just opened the Edward Jones office in Five Forks. I just came by to introduce myself. I'd love to get to know your family. Can you imagine that? That's what I had to do. But I was so passionate about the culture, and I felt like I said, man, I get it. I believe this. I mean, you care about people. Yes, sir.
When the stock market's down and your clients are angry, and you have new advisors that aren't making the money that they thought they were going to make, because it's a hard business you're in.
It's a tough business.
How do you use your company's culture to keep the new advisor on track and on point and on task? And how do you use it as a leader to help bring people along?
That is a great question.
Thank you.
I was actually I was on vacation in Colorado Springs about last week, and I was with some other Edward Jones folks, and I was asked to be on a panel to actually speak about that subject matter, a down market, preparing for a down market. And, some of the information that I shared with the financial advisors in the room, I'll say to you as well, is that we believe that, number one, is that, and I say to a new financial advisor, is that you have to, first of all, maintain your peace during times of uncertainty. And I said, whatever it takes to get to find that peace. It might be spiritual. I mean, it might be physical. It might be eating right, junk in, junk out. Get sleep, most important thing. That's the first thing. Because anytime you fly, what does the flight attendant say first? Before you secure your oxygen mask, before securing someone else's oxygen mask, make sure yours is secured first, right? In other words, you've got to maintain your peace before you can try to help your clients, because it's tough when you're hearing about different world events, be it politics, be it the world. Sometimes people feel like, hey, this time is different, but if you can maintain your peace during times of uncertainty, and we have to make sure that our clients are not performance or market driven, but they're goal driven. In other words, I have goals. I'm 20, I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50. To retire. And I always say that retirement is like a journey. No journey is going to ever be just a straight road. I mean, you're going to have potholes. You're going to have maybe traffic is going to slow down. Maybe there's a bump up. Maybe there's a detour. Retirement is the same way. And if you can, have your clients focus on not necessarily the moment, because it's not an event. It's a process. And I always say that for every blessing, there's always a burden that comes with it. So you have to focus on that journey, and you have to stay the course. And that's what I said to the folks there. We've got to stay goal focused, as opposed to performance focused, because it's easy to say, oh, man, the S&P or the market did 10% last year. I only did 3%. And I always use the analogy, my baby girl, Ansley Faith, does not like to eat vegetables. And so when we sit at the dinner table, I'll watch her, and she'll say, Daddy, I don't like it. And I'll say, Ansley, you're not going to leave the table until you eat your peas. But we know sometimes the things that are good for you are not always good to you. So, we just shared with our new advisors that stay in the course. Sometimes our clients may not understand that they need the things that are really good for them, but they don't always taste right, and and you need the market, you need stocks, you need equities, because compound interest is important for the long term. I always say it doesn't matter what happens tomorrow, because we're focused on the next 20 or 30 years. Hopefully that helped a little bit.
Last question: index funds or mutual funds?
That's a great question.
We'll save that for the after party. Financial advisor.
Right, but no, great question. You guys understand what index funds are?
Let's not go.
Okay.
Don't let Patrick drag you there.
Thanks, Patrick.
That wasn't awkward. So something that we spoke to Berra about, which ties into Patrick's question, not about mutual funds, but the previous question, was during the down market. When we hit horrible times during 2008, 2009, et cetera. And you said that time period really was a process of weeding people out, like really who is in it for long-term strategy. And I think how that question really helps tie into culture is hiring for fit. When Edward Jones selects an employee, there are certain things that are important, which you had shared with us, that people who value process, people who value quality, and people who value long-term strategy. So maybe if you could share with us a little bit about, when you select individuals, because it's really an investment. So as we go through the interview process, are we just really looking to fill a spot, or are we looking to really find someone who fits the purpose of our organization and our strategy?
Wow, that question there is incredible, because
Thank you,
Bear. Anytime we hire, a lady, a gentleman, for our financial advisor position, we invest. I believe the last time I checked was about $200,000 and some odd thousand into training for one individual. So our process, selection process is very, very selective. We have 20, 30, 40,000 applications a month all over the country, and in order to really pick the right candidates for Edward Jones, we're looking. You don't have to necessarily have majored in finance. We have teachers, we have coaches, we have engineers, physicians, doctors. So, if you are, coachable, if you, desire to help people, create a destiny for yourself, be your own, I would say, quote unquote, boss or leader. Edward Jones could be a great opportunity for you. But we're looking for those folks who value working in partnership. They're driven, they're motivated. Because nobody's going to tell you to go into the office. If you're not out doing the work, then Jones will probably make a hiring decision for you. And so it's true. During the 2008, a lot of, I would say financial advisors across the country, not just at Edward Jones, were, washed out. But I'll tell you this right here. In 2008, when we had the financial crisis, Great Recession, Edward Jones did absolutely no laying off. And we saw many of our competitors, laying off. We're a partnership, once again. So we're not worried about shareholders or stockholders. The employees own the firm. So I'm a limited partner. So once again, Ted Jones said that owners act better than employees. So, we actually grew during the 2000. We were still hired in 2008. But, no, great question there.
As you were talking, hello? Broke it. So I'm thinking about, we talked about the selection process, and something that's as critical is the onboarding process. And as we talk about these different aspects of culture, I would kind of just highly recommend to think about your own organization. How do you do these things? Because onboarding, that process is so critical. And you had mentioned that there's over a $200,000 investment when someone comes on board to be a financial advisor. And do we put them into an orientation process that's death by PowerPoint, right? Do we sit them in front of a computer maybe that's automated, or is it that personal interaction? And something that struck me when we spoke with Berra was the onboarding process that they actually send them to. And I want you to share a little bit about this. But you actually even send them to Ted's farm, right? And can you just kind of walk through that onboarding process? Because I think that those who are either listening through video or here, I think it's essential because as you grow, you have almost 50,000 employees at Edward Jones. We talked about how do you keep the culture, how do you keep the purpose, and you do that, especially whether you have 100 employees or 200 or 50,000. You do that through investing in them, and especially early on during the onboarding process, and ingraining that purpose, whether it be also during the selection process and onboarding. So give us an idea of just what that onboarding looks like.
Yes, with the investment that we make with our new employees, Edward Jones will send new advisors to St. Louis, and you actually go up for 3 or 4 times during that training process. But that first week is called Know Your Customer, and that's where you kind of meet the people in your training class. It's like when I started in 2001, like I'm still friends with the individuals. It's almost like boot camp, but gentlemen in Florida that I'm still friends with. Because you bond with those individuals. You're training together, you're learning together. Jim Weddle comes to speak with the group, managing partner. Several of our general partners are speaking with the individuals in St. Louis. And as Jennifer mentioned, you have the opportunity to go to visit Ted's farm. If I wanted to do that now, I could, when I'm in St. Louis doing training, we have that opportunity to visit the farm. And Ted, I want to say Ted gave he had many acres, but I want to say he gave a lot of the land to St. Louis, to be used, and he wanted to keep it all natural, So he just kind of gives you a mindset of the type of person Ted was. He gave the company away. He donated all of his land to St. Louis. Just a very, very unselfish individual. And when we have our regional meetings and our different ceremonies, the senior financial advisor always stands to give a toast to Ted, to share a little history about, Ted Jones and the fact of his, unselfish act of giving the firm away. So our new financial advisor being hit with this, on a consistent basis, in St. Louis, Jim Weddle comes out to speak with everyone, and the veterans, like myself, at the regional meetings, our most senior veteran, once again they'll toast Ted Jones. So we're being ingrained, along the way, constant training. Know your customer lasts for a week. You come home, you go out, you door knock in your local communities. You send you back to St. Louis, and you're with the individuals that you originally started with. Maybe we've lost 1 or 2, maybe not, but hopefully everybody's together. But it doesn't always happen that way. So if you start with 15 in your very class, once you get licensed, because you have to get all your Series 7 and different licenses, so that you're certified to do the work to serve the people in the local communities. But that's constant, that investment. St. Louis, Jim Weddle, and the veterans, the mentorship. So you're not alone. So if you feel like you're on an island alone at Edward Jones, that's not true. Then you're not engaging, because we require new advisors to kind of stay engaged with the mentors. And once again, that's a volunteer role for me and many of the veterans around Edward Jones.
What's really fascinating about having the opportunity to sit down and talk with Berra, in fact, we were having lunch, and I joked with him the other day. He stopped by the office just to see our location. And I was joking that I wish we could have just recorded that whole conversation and just broadcast it today, because that entire conversation, he had me so enthralled, and we just went back and forth on philosophy and theory. And what fascinates me the most is that everything he said to us in those meetings, the greatest places to work in the U.S., when you look at Fortune Magazine and their top 100, the leaders of those organizations are parroting back all of those same things. And there's a lot of consistency you see no matter what your industry is, whether you're in manufacturing, education, or whatever the process is. There's some common threads. First and foremost, it's know your purpose. And it's very clear that Edward Jones and Ted Jones actually, they knew very clearly what they stood for. They made sure that they communicated that constantly to their associates. Something I would encourage anybody that's involved in this process or anybody that's watching online, when you're teaching your people how to do what they do, that's great. But they don't know why they do what they're doing. So if you don't understand what you stand for, you're never going to get that level of commitment and that level of drive. And that person that's with an organization for 14, 15 years through downturns and through difficult processes. If you have really not sat with your senior leadership, there's a great old German adage that you sweep the steps top down. And the reality is, if your senior staff is not communicating on a regular basis exactly what you stand for and exactly what your vision is, and anyone here today, especially if you're in manufacturing, Jen and I have a couple of jokes. If we walk into a meeting with an organization that wants to work on their culture, and the first question they ask us is, how long is this going to take? They don't need us. They need some accessories to hang in the break room and, I don't know, maybe Taco Tuesday. But those are, give people a suggestion box. But I would encourage you, especially if you're in a larger organization, you have responsibility for a lot of people, go to the person in the lowest levels of your organization and ask them the question, what do we stand for? What is your job? What are you doing? Why are you here? Why is it important? If they can't clearly communicate that, we've not done our jobs correctly. You sent me a great picture the other day, and I'm sure some of you have heard this before, but JFK was walking through NASA, was taking a tour, and there was a guy mopping the floor, and he just asked the guy, he's like, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And it's that simple ownership of how important it is that no matter what your role is or how menial it may feel, that what you do is important and you contribute to the overall success of the company. You talked a lot about really the mentoring process, and you've shown that even at the highest levels of the organization, they had their own mentors. How do you, as an individual within the organization, and then from the other direction, how does the organization make sure that you're getting the level of support that you need to remain successful and to stay current and to stay engaged, excited, and focused?
Okay. At my level, I mean, there's still consistent training and opportunities to go to St. Louis. They'll bring in various leaders, speakers, maybe John Maxwell at dinners and so forth. So it's one thing to start, a leadership program when you early on in a career, but Jones is just consistently, bringing various, individuals around the country to just make sure that we stay sharp, because once again, I mean, there are people that report to me, and my job is to serve them, to make sure that they have the opportunity to flourish and become limited partners with Edward Jones. And I mean that's constant. One unique thing about Jones is that Jim Collins in his book talked about the 5-year plan. Every year, I mean, our 5-year plan is posted right now online, so you know exactly where the firm wants to go. We're transparent on our numbers, our measures as to how many financial advisors we want to have, how many women we'd like to hire. I mean, we have goals for every metric, but everything is posted, our 5-year plan, and we have to revamp that plan. We will do that. And we have a feedback box where anyone in our organization can make a suggestion, and our leadership team will compile all the questions and try to put it out to the work to Jones in some sort of format, like, hey, this year these are some of the things that we do well. Here are some of the things that we can do better. And that comes from the field, so we send our suggestions in. So it's constant, as far as the training for me and leadership, going to St. Louis, just trying to do the best that we can.
something that, just a plug for John Maxwell, because that's also a resource that we use internally within HTI. And if you've not heard John Maxwell, excellent leadership books, and we use it within several of our development programs. Rob and I have an opportunity to work with different companies on organizational culture. And I've heard Rob say over and over, if you don't think your company has a culture, you have a culture. So it's important that you know what it is. And they can tell you what it is. And we worked with a company recently, or we're still working with them, and one of their partners went to their location in Europe, and an employee asked them, when someone asks me who we are, what we stand for, what should I say? And this partner was kind of shocked, and then when he came back to the U.S., he asked the receptionist, so if I were to ask you who we are, what do we stand for, what's your response? And the receptionist couldn't respond. And so this company has been in business over 100 years. And so it's great to help organizations to really define their culture because it's not rocket science. And so just to kind of pare down everything that we've talked about today, the things that are important is what's your purpose within your organization? What is your organization value? What's the history? How do you pass that history along to your employees? Leadership, communication, selection of employees for fit, investment. Do you have a culture where your organization invests in the employees or in your employees? So all of these things they're fairly fundamental, but they're not as complex as they probably appear. We've talked a lot. Do any of you have any questions, whether you're streaming online or if you're sitting here with us?
Yes.
Actually, I have two. The first, your goal about increasing the diversity presence of women. What are some concrete examples of what Edward Jones does to attract and recruit minorities and women?
Great question there. When it comes to attracting women and diverse clients, diverse financial advisors, rather, we have really focused programs. Like we have one group, it's called WINGS, and it's I can't think of the acronym, but it's women. I can't think of the acronym, but I will tell you this. Very, very focused on the fact that we have specific numbers to not only hire women and diverse financial advisors, but we also want women and diverse financial advisors in leadership positions. So mentoring programs, actively recruiting, to bring in, women on a consistent basis. St. Louis, there's an event where we have a lot of our women financial advisors, who and they'll go out and they'll invite some folks, who may be interested in Edward Jones. As far as diversity, you have folks like myself and around the firm, who go to various organizations, be it colleges, I would say, any type of networking events, to share the opportunity. And for our military, we have a program called Forces, where Jones is actively, focused on our military folks. So very specific programs for women, diverse financial advisors, and our military veterans that we track, and we're encouraged. We educate, our workforce to be, open-minded, to be inclusive, to understand that we value differences, and I mean it's great to collaborate. So, that's a constant focus. One of my responsibilities, here in the area is to work with our financial advisors on inclusion and making sure the environment is fun for women and diverse financial advisors and everyone alike. So St. Louis will send me bring me up for training, and the folks around the country that also work in my role, to just foster that inclusive environment. So it's a constant education for our veterans and our new financial advisors that as America changes, I mean, we want to represent, what our country looks like.
And the other question was when you were talking about the openness of suggestions from all your employees. How do you keep those lines of communication with basically, I guess, how do you address the issue of employees who want to provide feedback and make suggestions but have the fear of, if I say something negative, this might come back to me. In other words, is there an anonymous process? How do you actually implement that?
It's anonymous. You can choose to list your name if you like, but it is anonymous, and so there's no issue with any type of hey, I'm going to come after you for what you say, but it's anonymous, and the firm really, they will make known that be very open, and if you want to share your name, you can, but it is anonymous. Yes.
Just want to say we want to make sure we're respectful of everyone's time. I know, Jen, if you would, because something that we at HGI have done, and we talk about knowing your purpose, this is a journey. It takes effort because it really takes, a lot of times, you may go to the people that are at the tops of your organization and ask them why they do what they do. And they can tell you what they do and they can tell you how they do it, but why they do it often is a mystery because they haven't actually sat down and thought about it themselves. And once you define that purpose and you communicate it openly and you communicate it repeatedly, it needs to be something that your employees can that it's almost a mantra, that it's sort of a battle cry for your company. And just to give you an example, I got to work with the senior staff a couple of years ago on ours because I'd known these people for 20 years and I couldn't tell you why they got out of bed every morning. And I wanted to know why. And what we came up with was just a very simple three-part that is basically, we believe that we are a family made up of our employees, our clients, and our community. We believe that we bring sophistication to an unsophisticated industry through creativity and innovation. And we believe that everybody who touches us can and should be better. And those are just, for us, those are very simple things. And we work every day. And it is a journey. We work every day to live up to those. And as we make business decisions, we ask ourselves, are they in line with the things that we say that are important? And so as you begin to go back to your companies and think about, and you may not be able to go to the very top of your organization and go, tell me why you get up every day. But you can define it for your group, and you can define it for yourself. And that may be the thing that kind of wakes you up and re-energizes you and makes you want to be a part of the change and be a part of the process. Did you have anything you wanted to add for you?
So it's something that actually that Rob introduced me to shortly after he introduced it to the leaders here. Start with Why, Simon Sinek. And he has a 18-minute video on YouTube that kind of scales this down. But he's exceptional when it comes to your defining purpose. The other thing I wanted to mention is that speaking of diversity, we actually are going to have a diversity session with Friday Morning Coffee. And we have a couple of people who have asked if they could partner with us. So we already have a couple of panelists that are going to join us. And so hopefully you'll join us for that. And next month is actually Labor Day week, part of Labor Day weekend. So we are going to record the event and then stream it. And so we'll send that out to you as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks.